The Boston Celtics pick Hugo Gonzalez. We'll hear from Brad Stevens on that, how the second apron smacked him in the face, and get an update on Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown right now on the Lockdown Celtics podcast.
Beantown, be ever ready. It's the C's. Who else could it be? What they gon' say now? Screaming like JT, Karalis. Recap the madness every game, every practice. Prime time, Depp and D White on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners.
Hey there, welcome back to the Lockdown Celtics podcast, right here on the Lockdown Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Your team is the Boston Celtics, and I talk about them Monday through Friday for free right here. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Watch that show here on YouTube. Get into the comment section. Share your thoughts on the draft, everything that you're going to hear today, because Brad Stevens did speak after the draft, and the Celtics have a new swingman, Hugo Gonzalez. We'll talk about that. Second segment, I'll play you Brad Stevens talking about the second apron and the moves and how that was just the quote was kind of interesting because it's smacked him in the face, he said. That's coming up. And then the third segment, we'll get a Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum kind of update and on that. So let's start with the drafting of Hugo Gonzalez, a 6'6", 19-year-old from Spain, playing with Real Madrid. He's been part of that Real Madrid system for a little while. I got the first question at the press conference. I asked Brad about drafting him and bringing him over right away.
Can you explain why you made the selection that you did tonight?
Yeah, we've been watching Hugo for a long time. He's obviously been on everybody's radar, I think, for a long time. And then, followed his year with a great Real Madrid organization and team and closely, and watched him in all the, U18s and those types of things. And just a big fan of how he plays. He's tough. He's hard playing. He cuts. He goes after the ball. He competes. He's got all the intangibles of a winning basketball player. And there's things he can get better at, just like everybody else at that age. But competitiveness is not, it's at a high level.
Is the plan to bring him over right away? And being a young guy, we've been operating under the past few years that you guys are, win now. He seems to be on a different timeline. Can you explain maybe what that...
I think he's a young guy, but a little bit of an old soul. I think he's played with adults for a long time. He's playing on a team full of experienced former NBA players and, high level pros from all over the world. So this guy has been around at a high level, been coached really well. So he'll be, I think when you talk about years overall, yes, he's young, but years of basketball experience, of the things that, we will think are important, it's probably pretty high.
So there was a little bit of surprise at the Auerbach Center. I was there, obviously. That's where all of this was held. A little bit of surprise that the plan was to bring him over right away. It is one of the reasons why I asked the question. He's, again, 19. He's 6'6", but he's young, and he's I feel like a guy that probably could have benefited from another year or two overseas, and maybe not necessarily in a Yamadar, Yuhan Begaron type of thing where he never comes over. The Celtics very clearly felt like he has the skills to make an impact here. Will those translate right away? Hard to say. He doesn't get a ton of time in the on Real Madrid, but he's been part of that program. And I think one of the things that Brad said was When you put on the Real Madrid jersey, you're putting on a responsibility, much like when you put on a Boston Celtics jersey. So that's a good kind of feeling, understanding the weight of what you're carrying with you as a player for a certain franchise. The other thing that Brad talked about, and he said it a few different times, he talks about how he cuts, his compete level, his intangible kind of stuff. One of the things that I'll read you the quote from today, because I couldn't put every single quote in there, where he said he cuts, we talk about sacrificial cuts that open up opportunities for other people. We talk about cuts that end up in you getting offensive rebounds. We talk about sacrificing your body on defense, competing on defense. We talk about flying back in transition, blocking a shot, catching up to a play. Those are things that he's willing to do that I like. So Brad brought up the times where the Celtics got stagnant in the New York series. And we talked about playing with pace in that series. And the Celtics were very much kind of like slowing it down. And he brought up like, hey, look, Indiana made it to the finals. They deserve to get to the finals because they play with a certain pace. The Thunder play with a certain pace. Brad, the message here is very, very clear. You have to play with some athleticism. You have to move on offense, a lot of standing around. It is one of the things that I have, the few times I've been critical of this team, is they don't cut. They don't move on offense. They do space the floor and stand there in space, but I want to see more ball movement. I want to see more player movement. Move yourself, move the ball. You can go back and find a lot of instances of me saying that. Move the ball, move yourself. And that just means make a pass, go set up screen, cut, do something. Do something to occupy the defense. And the Celtics, I think, got a little too complacent and were like, hey, no, we are spacing the floor. And I'm gonna stay in this space and give you room to operate, and that's fine. But we've talked about this on this podcast. As the team gets a little bit worse and they don't have the same players, that's where you're gonna have to rely on more ball movement, more cutting, more all of that stuff. So I think Brad, by drafting this kid, is sending the message to the guys, hey, this standing around stuff, A, isn't going to cut it. B, no pun intended, but B is we're not going to have the same team anymore. You don't have Porzingis anymore. You don't have Holiday anymore. Guys that you can those are bailout guys. Those are true bailout guys. You don't have that. So you're going to have to cut. You're going to have to do all of this. So where does Hugo Gonzalez fit in here? I don't know if he's going to become a rotation guy right away. It might take him a little bit of time in the developmental phase to improve his jump shot and get a sense of the NBA and the NBA timing and physicality and space and all that stuff. And but at least he's going to be on the practice floor. Right. And he understands one of the things that he's going to understand, being a part of Real Madrid, but not getting a ton of minutes. It's all of the work you have to do to give yourself a chance to play. And if he tests the Celtics' ability to defend an insane cutter, and when we get back to training camp, ask the questions about Hugo Gonzalez, and they say, man, this guy's cutting all over the place, man. He's getting a ton of backdoor baskets in these scrimmages, and it pushes the Celtics to do some of that themselves, then great. So I don't know that he's going to be an immediate impact guy. When I asked Brad about the timeline, part of that is the understanding, like, you're going to have to start building that next version of the Celtics, which is weird to say, but that next post Jaylen, post Jayson version of the Celtics. This kid's 19. He's not going to hit his prime for another 6-7 years. Well, in 6-7 years, Tatum and Brown are going to be in their mid-30s. They might be retired for all we know. So that's that phase. Those guys might be long gone from the Celtics organization, right? Or if they are here, or if one of them is here, they'll be at a much different phase. Let's just assume Tatum is here in, 6-7 years. He's 33, 34, maybe the tail end of being, good. And I don't know how he's going to age, but you're going to need somebody else to build your team around. And is this going to be that guy? We'll see. So I think, an interesting selection from Brad Stevens. I think it's a guy that has the potential to do a lot here and be a part of the Celtics' future. There's still a second round, so that we'll get into the second round tomorrow, but there is a second apron that Brad was very forthcoming about the moves. He couldn't talk about the specific trades because those aren't official yet, but he did talk about the motivation for those trades and how real the second apron was. That is coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by Wayfair. I mean, I've talked about my Wayfair upcoming purchases so much. I feel like I've got to invite all of you over to show you the Wayfair that we're going to buy, because we're going to be doing some outdoor stuff at the house, and I think a lot of people are. And Wayfair is a great place to go for you to level up your outdoor space. You want to do a whole set, a conversation piece? Great. You want to do an outdoor bar to accentuate what you have? Maybe you put in a fire pit. Maybe you go crazy. Let's do a hot tub, a gazebo. Even like a set of string lights, which my wife has mentioned specifically. So I know I'm going to be buying those. You can really spruce up your backyard, whatever your style. Is it clean, modern? Is it something bigger, more flowery, lots of colors? It's all there. Whatever your budget, whatever you're looking for, and the delivery, free, fast, hassle-free, even with the big items. So if you're hosting your friends or unwinding with a book, it feels like you're going to be in your own private retreat. Do not wait. Make your outdoor space your dream oasis today with Wayfair and enjoy it all summer long. Head to wayfair.com right now. Shop a huge outdoor selection. That's Wayfair, Wayfair. Wayfair.com. Every style, every home. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Make sure you're checking out Locked On NBA and Locked On NBA Game Night, 2 podcasts now. The games are over, but you still get 2 podcasts on the Locked On NBA feed. So go check that out, covering all the big stories, all the draft, the big stories coming out of the draft. There are some wild trades coming out of this draft, some big swings that had us all buzzing at the Celtics practice facility. So that'll all be covered on Locked On NBA and Locked On NBA Game Night. So obviously this was a 20+ minute Brad Stevens session. He said a lot. I'm only touching on some of the bigger stuff here, but the real interesting thing was talking about the second apron. Again, he could not talk about the trades because those are not official. He did acknowledge in a way that they happened because he said he has talked to everybody. They are difficult conversations, but the second apron penalties and that stuff, I just wanted you to hear how he talked about it, because this is even more like menacing than I even thought.
This is there's a lot of things that go into these moves and a lot of things that are really important. And listen, again, it goes back to prioritizing our flexibility. And, I think the second apron basketball penalties are real. And I'm not sure I understood how real until they were staring me in the face in the last month. So I do think that there's, I think that can't be overstated.
Right. You said a little while back about how when you were looking at managing this team over like a 10-year period, you were trying to keep the peaks and valleys from being, or maybe the valleys from being too low. How is the second apron shaped that vision, and how is maybe this summer kind of an example of that?
The biggest challenge for our team is our first team All-NBA players in a boot. That's number one, right? So we know that going into next year. And then everything else is is second to that as far as how we build, grow, and improve as much as we can. And over the course of time, I said when I sat down in front of everybody a few weeks ago, my goal is to compete for championships. And, there will be inevitably a lot that goes into being in the mix for those. And we just have to, again, prioritize the health of those two guys, and then also at the same time, make sure we're regaining some of our flexibility.
Regaining flexibility. He said that phrase about a half dozen times, which clearly was important. It's very obviously important. We talked about that yesterday, and I talked about that the day before, after the Holiday trade, after the Porzingis trade. The big thing that the Celtics did was they got their flexibility back. They got options back. It was the overarching theme of both of those two reaction podcasts. So we knew it. We saw it, Brad. We saw what you did. We'll get to the health of these two guys in the next segment, which is also extraordinarily important. But the basketball penalties are the big thing when it comes to the second apron. People talk about the CBA and how it needs to change and all of that stuff. And I'm sorry to break the news to you. It's not going to change. This is exactly what the league has wanted. And for now, there's this initial wave of, we're all talking about aprons, second apron this, first apron that, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, what will happen is all the teams will start to float around the first apron, a little over the tax, a little below the tax. Second apron won't be much of an issue for all but maybe 2, 3, 4 teams at most, but probably a couple, 2 or 3. Eventually, when everything takes hold and everything works the way the CBA is supposed to work, there'll be 24 teams right in that mid-range, right? That sweet, juicy middle at the Celtics that the NBA is looking at. And there'll be 2 or 3 teams on the low end, kind of like figuring out how they're going to get up to the salary floor, and 2 or 3 teams on the other end figuring out how long they can stay in the second apron, which is only going to be about a couple of years. And then those 2 teams cycle out, and a couple of teams from the middle at the top kind of move up into that second apron. And then teams at the bottom, maybe, or the teams at the top go down to the bottom. However that works, a couple here, and everyone else in the middle. And the aprons are going to go, like, the apron talk won't be as prevalent. Right now, it sucks, especially in Boston, because this is the worst case scenario for this whole thing. The championship team that had trouble learning how to be a champion and had some bad injury luck, that team doesn't get the Spurs advantage of, well, we won a championship and then we, kind of couldn't do it again, and then refocus and win another championship, and then we couldn't do it again, and then they were right back in the mix. You don't get that long kind of runway anymore. You get to do it a couple times. OKC maybe gets to do it a couple extra times because they were so young and so cheap that they'll get one more run it back year, and then they go into the second apron, and then they'll have to start making decisions. But most teams are going to be what Boston is doing. And it sucks in Boston because that championship was there, and this season should have been another championship run with most of the same team, but the tax and the aprons and the freezing of picks and all of that stuff, too much, too much. And it's not even about owners being cheap. Not even about that. It's about the basketball penalties and not being able to make the trades you want to make and not being able to, your future first round picks being frozen at the bottom and then frozen at the bottom of the draft. It's too hard. And when you're Brad Stevens and you say those penalties were staring you in the face in the past, since May, well, that means that, 3, 4, 5 years from now, they're looking at a straight rebuild. That is part of this whole discussion. And you cannot do a proper rebuild if your picks are frozen and at the end of the draft. Not possible. So that's why this is all happening. Some people want to make this about cheap owners, and this is not. Trust me, I have been very vocal about when owners get cheap. This is not it. This ownership group, the new one, the old one, they have been spending. The new one is, well, they'll spend some money. The point is, this is about the basketball penalties, and that's why Brad had to do what he did. Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, their health is a priority. Brad addressed that. Let's get into their recovery when we come back. Today's show is brought to you by Skims. Skims is making underwear for men. And, you normally think of Skims as a women's brand. And my wife is very fond of the Skims brand, the Skims line. So when I said, hey, they're going to be giving me some, she's like, you're going to love it. And she's right. She knew it because she loves the women's stuff. And the men's stuff is just as good. There's something for everyone. If you're a boxer brief person, the classic briefs, there's a perfect balance of comfort and style. I have the boxer brief, the 5-inch stretch brief, which is great at the gym. It's comfortable. It feels like you're wearing kind of like nothing at all. You forget that you're wearing it. It doesn't ride up on you. I know guys at the gym, you're up and down off the bench, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, this is uncomfortable. You're not really getting that with the Skims. You can wear it working out. You can wear it running errands. You can kind of wear it, whatever. They are great. They feel great. Super, super comfortable. I'm definitely buying more of those. You can shop Skims men's at skims.com. That's the easy way to go buy them. When you go, make sure you let them know that we sent you. It's very, very helpful. When you place your order, you can select podcast in the survey and then select this show in the drop-down menu that follows. So go to skims.com, buy your boxer briefs. You're going to love them, and let them know that we sent you. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. I would invite you to check out the Locked On. There's a Locked On for every Boston sports team. So if you're wondering about the Red Sox and they're not doing so hot, you can Locked On Red Sox is there. Locked On Patriots, Locked On Bruins. There's a lot to talk about. If you're a Boston sports fan, there's a Locked On for all of the Boston sports teams. If you're just a Celtics fan and you're a fan of other teams, whatever your favorite team is, there's a Locked On for that as well. All right, let's get into Brad talking about the Jays, Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, talking about their recovery. Obviously, Jayson has a long recovery ahead of him. Jaylen, not so much. Brad Stevens did touch on that.
You've mentioned Jayson a couple times. Do you have any update on what his projected timeline might be?
And we don't, and we won't. We won't put a projected timeline on him for a long, long time. And as we look at it, there's no reason to. It's baby steps right now. He's actually progressed great, but I don't know what that means with regard to projected timelines, and that'll be in consultation with him and Nick and Phil Coles and everybody else to make sure that he is, when he hits the court, he is fully ready and fully healthy, and that will be the priority. Jayson has been here pretty much every day, and then Jaylen traveled a little bit before he got the surgery and then has been back most of the time after, and he's doing great. His rehab looks good. He was actually on the court the other day doing some ball handling and doing some light work around the rim. Nothing big movement-wise yet, but I think his timeline is, again, we said be ready for training camp, and I think he'll be probably going full, well ahead of that, but we'll see. So we've seen both those guys very frequently. Jaylen's been in here working with Drew Moore and on all of his rehab, and Jayson with Nick, and it's usually the time of the year where I don't see those guys a lot. They usually go and kind of rest and get away, but they've both prioritized getting better in rehabbing, and after a long season, I appreciate that about them.
So good news there when it comes to both of these guys. I think the Jaylen Brown stuff, I think, was obvious that he's already back on the court doing some light stuff, which is good. He'll be going full soon enough. Probably, I would expect workout stuff in the next few weeks. At some point in July, he'll probably be posting workout videos because his meniscus surgery was relatively routine. I don't want to say minor because it's a knee, and they are taking out part of the cartilage, but it's very routine, and the rehab, the recovery is quick. The Jayson stuff, it's only been a month, and this is great that he's progressing, and he's progressing great. That's good. We don't know yet how far along in the rehab he is. I don't know if we can determine whether he's ahead of schedule or not yet, but as I've said, there are check marks, and there's there are a couple of check marks already. It's like, all right, let's getting off of off the crutches, out of the boot, all of that stuff. Eventually we're going to figure out where he's kind of expected to land. Where Brad is being cautious and saying we're not going to put a timeline on that. That makes perfect sense. They're not going to do that. That's not something the Celtics ever do anyway. But for Jayson, it's the bottom line is they are going to make sure that everything is perfect before he comes back, which I want to be clear in all of my, positivity when it comes to that injury and the recovery. I'm on the same page with Brad Stevens on this. He should not come back unless he is 100% ready, 100% strong, feeling, everything has to be perfect. He has to be completely ready, completely healthy, completely everything. I just happen to think that the time frame for that could still be during the NBA season, and with potentially enough time to ramp up and be ready for a playoff run. I don't think that's out of the question. But to be absolutely crystal clear, he should not come back early. He should not come back at 99% or 99.999% or whatever. 100%. Completely healthy, no issues. Every MRI scan clear. Every physiological test clear. Every strength test clear. Everything. Mental test clear. I've said this at the beginning of his recovery, and a lot of who was it? I think maybe Dominique Wilkins might have said it, where he said the first thing you got to do is trust your body again. And that has to happen before he comes back. Even if, again, I'm trying to be as clear as possible here. Even if physically he's absolutely perfect, everybody's like, go ahead, you're ready to go. And he's like mentally nah, I don't feel it. I'm still tentative. Then absolutely do not come back. Do not come back. If that's the case, you got to trust your body. You got to trust your body that it's just not going to do that again. And that's the hardest part in all of this, because ligaments heal, incisions heal, a bone, a tendon, all of that stuff. Everything heals. But mentally, if you're not confident, then you run the risk of getting hurt out there. Here's a guy that's at the peak, absolute peak of his athletic powers, and his body, no one is healthier than Jayson Tatum. No one has taken the time and the commitment to making his body as perfect as it can be. And still, he took that step, and his ligament just, the tendon, I should say, just snapped. And that's a hard thing mentally to get past. Like, I did everything right, and my body still failed me. So that has to be a box that you check. Do not go out there if you're not mentally healed as well. So all of those boxes have to be checked. But if those boxes are all checked and he's healthy, then come on back. Let's play some basketball and let's see where the Celtics are, because they still have a chance. They still have a chance next season. Maybe they need a few things to go right in a different manner than they did before, but I still think they have a chance, and Tatum, I think, can still be part of that. Obviously, what the Celtics are going to do is they are going to make absolutely sure. So if he comes back and it's January or February and the Celtics and everybody's like, yep, okay, we're good to go. And if Tatum says it and his trainers say it and the Celtics say it, then you got to believe it. And at the same time, if they say he's not coming back this year, then I have to believe it, right? If January, February comes around and they're like, it's been 8 months, he is going to miss the rest of the regular season, he is not ready to go, and he won't be ready to go in time, then I'll be like, okay, I thought he might be able to do it, and he couldn't, and that's it. End of story. And that's, so if we have that agreement, I'm ready. I'll sign on that right now. So that's the where we should all land on Tatum. So Brad said a lot more. I will be writing about this on Boston Sports Journal and all of that stuff. So there'll be much more on Boston Sports Journal. There'll be much more here on the Locked On Celtics podcast. So make sure you are subscribed here on the Locked On Celtics podcast. Get into that YouTube page. Get into the comment section. Let me know what you're thinking there. And I would love it if you shared the podcast and told everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.